Did you stop to think where your next meal will come from? It seems to me you like waking up on different porches and living in the slums.
What's the real story?
Not to say that crimes are good, but I'm just saying there's a reason. Sometimes there's a reason sometimes why people do what they do, and they don't want to be in that position. So
What's the real story?
saying like you're getting questioned in the room and they don't see you as a human.
And remember that man that was sitting way in the back crying? Come to find out it was my father. And he said, I'm sorry for your life, my son. Then he turned to the judge and said, I'm here to pay for his sins.
People saying, hey, you got to get your shit together. You got to, you got to get clean, whatever, whatever. And I'm saying, yeah, but they laced it. They put that in my weed. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't even be in this situation. Yes, that's true. You wouldn't be in this situation. But here we are. We're in this situation. So are you going to constantly focus on the fact that your blunt was laced and that's what got you addicted? Or are you going to focus on the fact that you are now addicted and it's on you to get clean?
People need to know that everybody that is on the inside are not bad people, and they are people that are deserving of your love, your concern. Can't turn back now. This life's not promised. Tomorrow may not come. I mean, like I said, my life is an open book, and I always say, that like I'm passing through. I'm just a pilgrim, and I'm passing through. This life is not promised, as you heard me singing the song. This life is not promised, So I live day to day, and I just try and do good things and be an example for those that I left behind, so that people can see that there are people that are on the inside that are deserving of a second chance.
Also, we have difficulty with, it causes a form of claustrophobia, but at the same time, we don't feel comfortable outside of small spaces or in overly large spaces, but then we get uncomfortable in really tight spaces.
You just hear people screaming through their cell doors all day, all night.
So I didn't have that same hesitation. I'm like, you're not gonna bully people just because no, that's not what we're doing.
Time is remembered in silence. So when I'm thinking about a lot of things, I'm literally being silent thinking about it.
I was doing my time in silence, but I wasn't silent because I'm innocent.
Read a lot of fucking books and then try to tell me what my life is about. I don't give a damn what book you read. You didn't live my life.
Yeah, because I wanted her to not beat herself up about not becoming what she thought she should be, or not being where she thought she should be. She was a little bit, I think she sunk into like this little small time depression, or tried to. But then all of a sudden, boom, she came out with a song.
People need to know that everybody behind the wall are not bad people. I'll tell you what, before I had even gone to prison, see, God has a way of getting our attention, because I used to be one of those people that think, well, they ain't in prison for singing on the choir, they must did something. So I thought that everybody that was in prison just belonged there, until I was put on the inside. And I'm telling you, I met some of the most beautiful women that I'm telling you I could ever meet in a lifetime.
Yeah. Judges, lawyers, and correctional blue seek to slither and slide.
Jacob de populo barbaro, in exitu Israel de Egypto, domus Jacob de populo barbaro, Regina Celi letare, alleluia, quiam demeruisti, portare, alleluia, Regina Celi letare, alleluia, quiam demeruisti, portare, alleluia.
Freedom over me. Freedom, it's all over me. And before I be a slave, I'd rather be buried somewhere in my grave. 'Cause freedom, it's all over me. Where the Spirit of God is, there is freedom. And Miss Naomi, every time she would sing, "Oh Freedom," she would remind us of this truth. You can find a photo of Miss Naomi on the back of your programs. She and I met in 2022 as she was my teacher, as a formerly incarcerated individual, spending 38 years in prison, originally sentenced to life in prison. But that's just the thing about Miss Naomi, is that no matter what sort of obstacles she endured or what sort of bondage she ever faced on the outside, she always understood that she had freedom, that it was upon her and within her. She had this saying, as you might have heard at the beginning, that she's just passing through, that she was a pilgrim and that life is not promised. And so Miss Naomi is now in the fullness of freedom now, as she has passed on to be with God. And so I can just hear even now, as she was an angel to us on earth, just as Virgil was to Dante, so is she still a guide to us, still an angel with us. And she would just sing even now, "Freedom is over me. Freedom, it's all over me." Despite the trials. And before I be a slave, I'd rather be buried somewhere in my grave. 'Cause freedom, that's what she would do, it's all over me. And I'll say it one more time. I'll say, freedom, it's all over you, Miss Naomi. Freedom, it's all over you. And we know that before you were to ever be a slave, that you'd rather be buried somewhere in your grave, because freedom, it's all over you.
Thank you, Miles, for that song. Come on up. And thank you for the words about Miss Naomi Wilson, to whom this show is dedicated today. Welcome. Come on down in the front and the center. Actors will be happy to see you close. And thank you all for being here. We appreciate your presence. We hope you'll stay after the presentation for a discussion with the actors. They'd love to hear your comments, and they'd love to answer any questions that you have. And we have a special guest Professor Allison Cornish from New York University, the president of the Dante Society of America. She's going to kick off the discussion, so I think you'll enjoy the dialogue that we'll have after the formal presentation. So please stay with us. And we also want to thank all the sponsors who made this event possible. They're all in the program, but I'll mention just a few: the Albritton Center for Public Life, the McMahon Fund of the Romance Language Center, the Center for Community Engaged Learning, the College of Letters, the Dean of Social Sciences, the Sociology Department, the Theater Department. So many units of the university have contributed to this evening, and we appreciate it. And the Olin Library gave us permission to photograph their amazing collection of Dante manuscripts, and you saw some of the images from those pages in the pre-show montage that Izzy Marcus and Sasha Esteen put together. So we appreciate their work as well. And thank you to Dini Alathiani, who came from Yale to sing those beautiful sacred chants that Dante refers to in his poem. Miserere is the chant that he refers to in Inferno. In Purgatory, he hears the dead souls singing in Exitu Israel, the exodus out of slavery in Egypt. And in Paradise, he hears the angels singing Regina Coeli, the Queen of Heaven. So that's the trajectory of Dante's journey, and it's the trajectory of the journey that we'll take you on this evening, from Inferno through Purgatory to Paradise, with the help of our guests, our formerly incarcerated guests, some of whom began reading Dante with us many, many years ago, when they were still incarcerated. Maricel Garcia in 2010 was reading Dante with us at York. Vernal Davis and Robert Day were reading in McDougall Walker in our Dante class with Yale students in 2018. And Vernal's mom, Nancy Fredericks, has been reading Dante as long as her son was. So she's part of the family here, and we're really honored that after all these years, they're still working with us, teaching my students so much about what Dante meant in his poem and what is really going on in the American prison system. So I think they deserve a special hand for that perseverance of being with us. And of course, we are honoring Naomi Wilson, an extraordinary woman. I asked Miles to sing that song that she always used to sing for us. She told the students every year at Yale and at Wesleyan that she understood what Dante was talking about when he wrote about hell, because she lived through hell in the decades that she was in prison. And whenever we would read a passage, it would remind her, a passage from Dante would remind her of the songs that she would sing in the prison chapel on Sundays. And when we read the passage that said that the purpose of Dante's journey, Virgil explained at the beginning of Purgatory, the purpose of Dante's journey is looking for freedom, libertà va cercando, then she immediately thought of that song about freedom. She sang it for us, and she's a woman who really knew what freedom meant, because she had been deprived of her freedom for 37 years. Imagine, when she went into prison, her son was 10 years old, and when she came out, he was 47. When he was in grade school, he would try to get in trouble because he thought if he got arrested, the police would put him in the cell with his mother and they could be together. So, and he's just one of 2.7 million children on any given day in the United States who have a parent in prison. And that rupture of the bond between parents and children that's caused by incarceration, and the healing of that rupture that can be helped by the arts, are the themes that my students have been exploring with our formerly incarcerated guests that you're going to meet and hear from in a few minutes. So, and it's also a theme that's built into the subtext of Dante's Divine Comedy, because he wrote the Divine Comedy in exile, separated from his children for decades, having been convicted of crimes and that he didn't commit, and being sentenced to death if he ever went back home to his family in Florence. So, and when he was young, he lost his parents at a young age. So it's not surprising that the poem is full of many mother figures, father figures, good and bad mother, father figures, that he meets on his journey. And that journey is a frame, Dante's journey is a frame that we used in prison and out of prison in our classes to look at the parallels between Dante's journey out of hell and the journey out of prison that millions of Americans have experienced and continue to experience in our country that incarcerates a bigger percentage of its population than any country in the world. And he always had Dante always had these guides that would help him, like Virgil. So when you see the cast hold up their books, you'll know that they're quoting from Dante, and they're giving you the opportunity to consider what the injustices in the Middle Ages that Dante wrote about have in common with the injustices that we're all still living with today. Dante confronted these injustices with the help of his guides like Virgil, who guided him through hell, who he considered who was like a father figure to him. He calls him dearest father, dolcissimo padre. And sometimes Virgil is like a mother to him. In the scene where Virgil is taking saving the pilgrim from the demons in hell, Dante compares him to a mother saving her children from a burning building. Come una madre, avendo più di lui che di sé cura. Like a mother, thinking more of the safety of her child than of herself. And the first two guests that you're going to meet tonight are a mother-daughter team, extraordinary mother-daughter team, whose story reminds me of what Dante says when he looks back on the dark forest of his past, and he compares it to a shipwreck, and he wonders how he ever made it out alive. L'acqua perigliosa, che non lascia giammai persona viva. The dangerous waters that never let anyone out alive. And when I first met Deborah Taylor, she was preaching in a church in Philadelphia about surviving a storm at sea. And there were women in the congregation who got up and testified how Deborah had saved them from the storms of their own tempestuous lives. And her daughter, B.L. Sherrell, was not testifying that day, but she was there in church. And she often told my students at Wesleyan and at Yale how proud she was of her mother, because they had both survived incarceration. And in a way, they both helped each other survive each other's shipwrecks, saving each other from situations that many people might never have survived alive. So now please welcome Deborah Taylor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Professor, for such a wonderful introduction. I met Professor Jenkins through my daughter, BL, and Professor Jenkins introduced me to Dante. And when I read Dante's first journey in Inferno, he talked about how he had to go down to make it out. And he definitely had my interest because in my drug addiction, it caused me to hit bottom. And it wasn't until I hit the bottom that I had to look for a way out. I didn't just use drugs on the weekend. I used drugs day after day after day to the bitter ends. I didn't just steal. I stole from my mother. I robbed her of her peace and her sleep. I didn't just sell drugs. I sold myself. My spirit was broken, and the capacity to feel human was lost. But thank God for second chances. Today's presentation is dedicated to Miss Naomi and the arts. Art is the expression of human creative skill and imagination, producing works to be appreciated for its beauty or emotional power. May it be a painting, literature, dance, or music. Dante says, all of which depict examples of the virtue of humility. Naomi Wilson, a woman of virtue and humility, a true woman of God. She shared her life with us through her art of music, and her voice
It was so beautiful. I don't have the words to describe it. Naomi is remembered as a legend of music. She loved it, she lived it, she was loyal to it, and she dedicated her whole life sentence to it. And today, we remember her. As for me and my daughter, BL, we became well-known drug dealers in our neighborhood. And even though we both went to jail, she was just in juvie back then. When I got out, she wasn't ready to let go of the lifestyle, so she went back again and again. BL and Naomi met in prison, and Miss Naomi had become her Virgil. There's a story in the Bible about an apostle named Paul and his missionary companion, Silas. And Paul and Silas went to prison, and the Bible says that they were praying and singing until the foundation of the jail shook, and the chains came loose, and the cell doors flew open. Well, BL and Naomi, they sang until the chains came loose, and the cell doors flew open. First for BL, and then for Naomi. My daughter was never an amateur in the area of arts, poetry, and music. For BL, music was her highest form of hope, and hope has a certain expectation of future glory. God says, in the heart of those who are skillful, I have put the skill. So we learn two things about God's view of art. He likes it, and he's the source of it. BL did 10 years in prison, but it didn't strip her of her talent. It didn't strip her of her gift. It didn't strip her of the art. Music washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life. So please, don't focus on the punishments, but think about what comes after. I'd like to present to some and introduce to others my daughter, BL Sherrill.
Good evening, good evening. I know y'all probably thinking, how the hell is that her daughter? She's fountain of youth over there. Thank y'all for coming out tonight. I want to share a story with y'all this evening about Miss Naomi and I. And it's a really important story. I was actually once a first-hand witness of women history. Now to tell it fully, I have to go all the way back to 2007. And this was the first year that I was sent to SCI Muncie. Sentenced to 12 years at 18 years old, I saw the full range of women from every race, age, incarcerated. And it was sobering. After a while, you can spot the lifers just from the way they spoke. They speak with a certain conviction, or how they walk with a distinguished grace and dignity. It was resilience. A resilience, a poise that you can only lock or unlock when faced with one of the most degrading, low-quality standards of life, and that's life without parole. And when I moved to general population, I met some of the women who would later form a group called the Lady Lifers. First was Teresa Battles, and she was my mentor, and she pushed me to plan for life after reentry. And then I met Naomi Blount Wilson, the superstar, choir director, and vocalist who taught me how to harmonize and write songs on my guitar. And all of these women and the Lady Lifers were incarcerated since before I was born. And we young folks, we loved those women. And they loved us back. They wanted more for us than what we got out of life, what they got. They was constantly reminding us how blessed we were to have a second chance to right our wrongs. And we didn't see them the way the judge or the jury saw them. And I don't wish to minimize their victims' pain by saying this. This is my truth. It's my living testimony for the women whom I spent a decade of my life with. And they were decades removed from whatever horrors determined their fate. And there's a scene in Dante's Inferno where he's walking through part of the forest called the Suicides. And they're trees, but the trees are actually souls. And Dante walks by and he just casually breaks a branch off one of the trees. And the tree screams out, "Why do you break me?" Then, after blood had darkened all the bowl of the wound, "Why do you tear me? Have you no sense of pity whatsoever?" Lifers often are looked at by the administration as just permanent fixtures, just like the desk that's attached to your wall in the cell. They just seen as numbers. And that part of the forest really resonates for people who are spending life inside prison. So now let's fast forward to 2014. And TEDx is setting up an event of performances and presentations at SCI Muncie. And my band, BL Sherelle, we're performing. But make no mistake, the headliners of the night are the Lady Lifers. And in the beginning of auditions, they were hesitant to touch the fears they had explored privately in the Lifers group. They had fear, real fears. Some had already lost their entire families to distance and time. Some had been incarcerated for more than 40 years. Surely they could share their stories with the world, spark conversations about justice, revenge, cruelty, rehabilitation, redemption. What's the difference in these things? Which ones are we practicing as a society? And Miss Naomi went to her cell, and she answered those questions through a song. The result, This Is Not My Home, written by Howard Woodring and Naomi Blount Wilson, sung by the Lady Lifers, was a true group effort born of decades of intimate, vulnerable conversations between women who could only be understood by one another. They took their rawest fears and offered them to the world. This Is Not My Home amassed over 1 million views on YouTube, and it sparked a conversation around commutation for women lifers in Pennsylvania. Prior to that performance, from 1989 to 2014, only 2 women were commuted from a life sentence in my state. And after that performance, the number jumped by 400%. Music did that. And as a 25-year-old recidivist who'd been through it all, I was so inspired by their bravery that I did the same with this song, Wrong Side of the Road. In the middle of the journey of our life, I found myself in a dark forest, for the straight road was lost.
Now we're spinning on the wrong side of the road. I've been drifting even where the hitchhikers won't go.
I'm out of control around here. You gotta pay with your life at the toll. But still I ride, I roam, I ride all alone. I ride on my own, hoping this dead end takes me home. Hoping that this dead end takes me home.
I GPS'd it, I'm still headed in the wrong direction. Hoping the mirror's reflection, but success is
just a mile away. Success is just a mile away.
It's just a mile away. My wheel's spinning on the wrong side of the road. I pray to God my children never ride the streets that I drove.
My mom had this car, but she sold it. I found it, I stole it. I've been on this road since, hopeless and homesick, wishing on the dead end to take me home. Wishing on this dead end to take me home.
I GPS'd it, I'm still headed in the wrong direction. Hoping the mirror's reflection, but success is
just a mile away. Success is just a mile away.
It's just a mile away. My wheel's spinning on the wrong side of the road.
You think by now I know now. Just slow down, foolish, no bounds. I married this go round, and I'm praying on the dead end to take me home. Praying on the dead end to take me home.
I GPS'd it, I'm still headed in the wrong direction. Hoping the mirror's reflection, but success is
just a mile away. Success is just a mile away.
It's just a mile away.
Success is just a mile away.
It's just a mile away.
Success is just a mile away.
It's just a mile away.
said she's just a mile away. Mile away. Thank you. The next presenter, I met her in my first class of professors, and what struck me about her was she wasn't a student, she wasn't a teacher's aide, she wasn't a formerly incarcerated person. She was the mother of a gentleman who actually took the class before, and her son's change came from such a deep place that she had to come to the class and take it herself to experience and see what sparked him. And I thought that that was so powerful. As a person who spent many years behind bars, you know, you seldom see parents of grown folks being that invested in their child's incarceration. I thought it was so beautiful. And for that, she already, you know, marked my heart. But then I got to know her as an actual person. And turns out she's so graceful, so beautiful, such a great spirit. And I'm sure you all will see why in just a second. So without further ado, everyone, Miss Nancy.
Thank you, BL, for those kind words. You are living proof that sometimes kind-hearted people make bad choices, as we all have. Love you, BL. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our world. I like to think of it as a Dante connection. My son have been a part of the Dante program for 9 years. The first 6 years he was incarcerated, professor would send a student into the prison and they would come out and relive his life. When he originally signed up for the program, trust me, it wasn't about the program. It was about getting out of his cell. But on the very first visit, he was impressed. He said it was like therapy for him. He was able to connect his life with the life of an old, deceased Italian man out of a book that wasn't reader-friendly to me. That man was Dante. Dante lost himself. He was in a forest. He couldn't go anywhere, and each time he tried to step up, his wild beast would bring him back. And that's what happened to my son. Virgil was Dante's guide, but Virgil could only take Dante through hell. He took him through 9 circles of hell. Couldn't take him any further. It took Beatrice, the love of his life, who died at an early age. She left heaven to come to hell to bring Dante to heaven. Ladies, won't we do that for the people we love? We will give up our life for those that we love. My son was broke down. He was in a dark place. And as the old folks would say, back in my days, that boy sold himself to the devil. Poor self-esteem, low confidence in himself, bad relationships, and yes, fake and phony friends. But the straw that dropped him to his knees, his 10-year-old daughter, the love of his life, died so unexpectedly in front of our eyes. And all of us know what it feels like when someone you love dies, especially when it's your child or your grandchild. He couldn't deal with it. My son had 2 evils, 2 demons. One was the streets, and I always call them death road streets. It was either kill or be killed. And I'm talking about the trigger-happy police officers as well. And then he had drugs. Drugs had a real tight hold on him. He couldn't let go. My son have been to hell But I gotta let me correct that. He did the crime. But our family did the time. So we have been to hell. We've been to hell and back. 13 years, imagine that, of being on your knees, praying, God, breathe on them. God, please don't let me die with my son in prison. Don't let that happen. Please, God, don't let him get hurt in prison. Won't God answer our prayers? God will do it, because he's back. He's hardworking, doing things with his family, love to write. And you know what? I see a little black Phil in him. Dr. Phil. But as quiet as it's kept, I don't like Dr. Phil. I never learned to like Dr. Phil. But I want him to tell you the rest of his story.
That's my mother right there. I love you, Ma. What really captured me about Dante, it wasn't the book itself. It was how it was presented to me, the interpretations, you know, the witty way we was able to use Dante writings and put our own words in it. You know, Dante wrote something like, I found myself lost in the woods so dark, how harsh and fierce that place was. And it made me think, you know, I was lost on them savage streets in Hartford, a city of woe, grief, and sorrow. You know, Dante also wrote about, he had these wild beasts, you know, and what really stuck out to me, he talked about the she-wolf, and the more you feed her, she wants more and more and more and more. That was my addiction, you know. So Dante pulled me out of this dark hole that I was in. Dante was my ladder. And as I was able to climb up that ladder and look back and to see my ill will ways, and it's just like as Dante went up to heaven, and this little threshing floor that made us so fierce, that was me. And I realized that as I was able to look back. So what I'm about to say is, this ain't for everybody, but somebody needs to hear this. Them projects and them streets had a significant impact on my life. I hated it and loved it at the same time. I was broken and addicted. And way before I went to prison, my mindset was convicted. It was self-inflicted. See, I had to be wiped clean, sit down and be wiped clean and lose everything and be still and let my thoughts run free. I had to be quiet. And today, I can honestly say that the streets was nothing but an attractive nuisance, disorder, and confusion. See, them streets and them projects, check it now, it was like one big amusement park, minus the rides and the security guards. People coming and going in all directions, running and screaming and cussing, people bumping into each other. Now they start fussing. Somebody pulls a gun, and now they start busting. Okay. Strange languages, horrible utterance, words of pain, shouts of anger, loud voices and whispers. And you know what comes after that. Many tears start pouring. We never listen to the warning. You ever been with somebody at night and now over them you mourning in the morning? Wow. We are all shadows on the wall of time, and my time was running out. My razor lights was no longer shining bright. My smiles was never lasting. I was temporarily laughing. See, I knew I needed help, but I was embarrassed to be asking. I went from weed smoke sparking. I'm gonna say it one more time. I went from weed smoke sparking to sniffing dope nodding. This beast has a nature so fierce that her greed is never satisfied. And after she eats, she's more hungry than before. My family and friends was like, oh God, Lord, please, Jesus, help us. But I was thinking, do he even see us? Was we damned from to feed us? Because between us, it seems like he's quick to leave us. Okay. Was I a blessing or a curse? And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes when I pray, it gets better. But then sometimes it got worse. But back to what I was talking about, the drugs. Yes, I tried it, had an addiction and tried to hide it. And the reason I speak about it so openly, because we don't need nobody else getting strung out, going to prison, or dying behind it. My behavior was so unpredictable, but it appeared random. I had a kill her mentality, and I knew it was wrong. My young nephew said to my mother, "Grandma, Uncle was here one day, and now it's like he's forever gone." As my nights and days came together, I realized I had hood habits, meaning I was hurting everybody around me, and I was good at it. Very deceitful, calm and caring under pressure, and compassionately evil. Some say I just lost my bearings. I slipped. They say falling down is part of growing up. See, I was prepared for life, but I wasn't prepared for life's journey because I was always angry because I didn't like my condition. I did not like my condition. But it wasn't the physical, it was the mental. And the drugs helped me escape the low self-esteem and the mood swings, the high blood pressure because how I ate, the fear of making mistakes, the self-doubt, insomnia, fatigues, and the headaches. I was constantly losing jobs because I couldn't go to work because I was hurt over a flirt in a skirt that was doing me dirt. When I went to prison, I was beat down. Like my mother said, I was beat down, barely breathing, moving fast, going nowhere in life. I was slowly speeding. And two wrongs don't make it right. But at that time, to me, it made it even. And with the combination of drugs, weed, anger, it had my eyes bleeding. Prison forced me to sit down and be still and realize in my father's semen, I was fighting demons. Like I said, this ain't for everybody. But somebody need to hear this. So what happened when you make the punishment a reward? I did many reentry programs when I was incarcerated, and for the most part, it prepared us for society. But they don't prepare society for us. I was in prison doing godly stuff. Inside that concrete hell, my laboratory was my laboratory, kitchen, bedroom, and gym. I lived in a box, 6 by 8 foot cell. And when I was out in that world on them streets, I was nothing but a lost figure. In other words, what I'm trying to say, I was imprisoned in the world. The box just was bigger. See, I went to prison in 2009. I got out in 2022. By my 5th year in prison, I became rich. By the time they let me out to this present day, I became very wealthy. See, today I'm rich in character, and I'm wealthy because I have an abundance of understanding. See, today I understand everybody you fight is not your friend. I mean, it's not your enemy, and everybody that help you is not your friend. Just because one is on your side, that don't mean they by your side. Today, I will continue to thrive through this pinball machine of a world which is a race to death. I will continue living on this tilted playing field, going through obstacles that most think getting out of will be impossible. Today, I do things on principle. Well, y'all, guess y'all could call this my ghetto English broken thesis. I'm no longer broken, but I am still picking up some pieces. And the streets can no longer molest my brain and impregnate my thoughts. And this is an admission. This is an admission. I'm not bragging. I'm just trying to let everybody know that street lifestyle is no longer my illusion. And like I said before, this ain't for everybody, but somebody needed to hear this. And my condition is no longer my conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Amen.
This next gentleman I'm about to introduce, I met him when I was in prison. I was a CNA down in the prison, and he was one of my patients. And me and him used to chop it up. You know, we build all the time. And he shared something with me. He said, yo, preach, man, I'm innocent. And lots of us say that when we in jail. You know, we innocent. He really was innocent. So he was fighting and I love because what he said is, I'm not saying I didn't do things before, but on this, what they have me for, I'm innocent. You know. And as he was saying that, come to find out, they gave him 6 months to live. He found out he had a bad heart condition. So now this man fighting 2 fights. He's fighting for his freedom, and he's fighting for his life. They told him, get your affairs in order. You only got 6 months, something like that to live. Get your affairs in order. So I'm thinking, whoa, when he shared that with me, that's a quote in Dante. I think Dante said, somebody said, abandon all hope. So they pretty much told him to abandon all hope. Get your affairs in order. You only got 6 months. Abandon all hope. But he too stubborn to die. He did not abandon all hope. And as he shared that with me, I wanted to get him into the Dante class because he wasn't part of Dante. And anybody that been in prison, knows somebody in prison, you just don't walk in nobody's room and kick their bed. And it was time to sign up, and it was the last minute. And since I was a CNA, I had access all over. And I came in, and he didn't want to get up. And I kept saying, Coach, man, I need you to sign this. Man, go ahead, man. Man, I need you to sign this. And he wouldn't. I kicked his bed. I was ready to run because he's a big dude, dog. You know, for real. Am I lying? And I kicked his bed, and he got up, and he was mad. And I just said, man, I need you to, you know. And you know how everybody, man, I don't want that old man. Dude don't got nothing with it. I was some Malcolm or something, some Martin, you know. But I started sharing with him about Dante, and I was saying his life is our life. You know, he was exiled. He had lost love. You know, he went through some stuff. I was about to cuss about my mother here. Yeah. And I got Culture in it, man. And after that, skies was the limit. I don't want to be long-winded, but this is my boy Coach. He gonna tell you his story. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, preach. Yes, thank you. Give him another round of applause. The poet. Well, as he explained to y'all, I got sentenced to 30 years for a crime I didn't commit. And at that time, I met Preach at that time. So what took place was my heart stopped from the stress of being in prison. Waking up innocent every morning, going to sleep innocent every night. And at the time, when I woke up out of the coma, the doctors told me that I had 6 months to live. So in the infirmary, this is when I met Preach. And I was on the brink of insanity. I was losing my mind because it was like 6 months to live. I'm not leaving my kids with a legacy. I'm gonna die an innocent man. But I met Preach. He introduced me to Dante. And then Dr. Jenkins taught me about Dante. So I wrote a letter to Dante. This is my letter to Dante. And I've never met Dante. You know, his scripts, his consults are 700 years old. But also, I never met all of y'all. So today, because I believe that Dante is a piece of every one of us, and Dante is in every one of us, that today I'm writing a letter to you, right now, y'all Dante. So, Dante, you're a hard human to write a letter of appreciation for. You've traveled from beyond, from inferno to paradise, leaving us clues filled with gems. If I was to imagine you, because I never met you, just like I never met y'all, I'm glad y'all came today, I would have visualized a stern look with piercing eyes, a questionable look of why I am. Dante, let me ask you a question. Did you know? I mean, like, did you really know that your story would relate to mine? Well, it did. 700 years ago, you wrote a cantos about your journey that now entails my journey. And that within itself leaves our existence intertwined. So now let me tell you about my own journey from inferno through purgatory, and as of now, I'm striving to reach paradise. Right in the middle of this field is an abyss, a broad and yawning pit, whose structure I will tell in its due place. See, Dante, my hell was being sentenced to 30 years for a crime I didn't commit. And as my spirit sunk deep into despair, a dark space in that abyss, I felt trapped where I live. The yelling, the screaming, the cries of men and women wailing through their cell doors, because the pressure of the system was designed to keep us immobilized. So at that point, I prayed for an escape. And it was then that I heard your name, Dante. And I'm going to say that again. I heard your name, Dante, spoken off the tongue of my guide, Preach. And it was at this time in the universe, everything started to align itself. At which I said, Master, my sight is so illumined by your light, I recognize all that your words declare or analyze. See, Dante, my purgatory was living in a prison infirmary for 2 years while being told I have 6 months left to live. Now let that sink in. Me, 6 months left to live. I died 8 times in the process. And before you ask, I ain't seen no white light at the end of a tunnel. And there was no white light. But there was an assorted of colors that illuminated from the darkness. See, Dante, clear, boom, boom. Clear, boom, boom. It makes me emotional because this is the defibrillator that popped off every time I died. Then, see, Dante, you was my defibrillator. And with your electrical spark, you awakened my true heart, which allowed me a piece of divinity. Dante, it was you who confirmed my God, my creator, and the grand architect of my being. You have Virgil, I have Vernal. As my guide, Preach would speak your words like a poet, and I would draw strength from your contours. Dante, you were my branch of hope that pulled me out of the quicksand of despair. At the same time, you resurrected me from the darkness to the light. Dante, you was my spiritual guide. Preach was my physical guide. And both of them gave me the will to want to live longer. Shift your thoughts and remember, I am close to him who lightens every unjust hurt. I know that they call this a divine comedy, but I call it my divine life source. Now, Dante, your travels through purgatory from hell, reaching paradise, leaves me with questions. Similar to the questions you had 700 years past. Now, those questions has me searching for answers. What questions you might ask? Well, am I going to paradise? And if I get there, will they let me in? I believe that paradise is a state of mind, a righteous state of mind. And purgatory is the stagnation of that state of mind. And hell is straight insanity. Straight insanity. Just you repeating the same wrong decision over and over again. And as we exist in our dimension, we exist in that state of mind. So Dante, these are my answers, whether they are right or wrong. You have fueled my inner ghost with optimism, insight, and divine vision. And to show my gratitude, I will not let anyone forget you. Also, I will continue to search for those hidden jewels you left us in your contours, so that one day I may have the honor of being a guide for someone else as you were to me. Respectfully, without question, Culture. before you clap, because I know you're about to clap. All right, I want y'all to, I'm gonna ask y'all the same question. Matter of fact, I want y'all to ask each other the question if you can, please. I know you're all strangers, but look at each other and ask, do you believe in paradise? And if you believe in paradise, do you believe when you get there, will they let you in? Y'all have a good day.
Well, Culture, to answer your question, yes, I believe in paradise, and I'm working really hard to try and get a yes when I get there. Now, y'all need to loosen up. So this one, I'm going to expect y'all to sing the hook. It's easy. We can all sing along. It's a celebration to Culture still being here with us, all right? So they called me a misfit, illegitimate and I'm ill-equipped, but my experiences will still exist. See, I'm alive for now while you live for this. That ain't guaranteed, that's the difference. I use my eyes when I listen. I can see the wind whispering. I can feel the breeze kicking in, mind drifting in. So I yell freedom.
Lord knows I yell freedom. Freedom on a Saturday night. All night.
So I yell freedom.
Lord knows I yell freedom. Screaming it with all of my might. All night.
How much you gonna cost me? You crossed me, you lost me, get off of me. You can't pay enough to be the boss of me. You can't buy, won't sell any parts of me. So I wash you away. I'm getting drenched by the rain, and every drop brings a little change. And these clouds will never be the same, never be the same. So I yell freedom. Lord knows I yell freedom. Freedom on a Saturday night, all night. So I yell freedom. Lord knows I yell freedom. Screaming it with all of my might, all night.
It's not easy when you're trying to change.
Trying to change.
How to manage from day to day.
Day to day.
Getting tired of living this way.
So I yell freedom.
It's not easy when you're trying to change.
Trying to change.
How to manage from day to day.
Day to day. Be humble, stay sane. Maintain and yell freedom. Lord knows I yell freedom. Freedom on a Saturday night, all night. So I yell freedom. Lord knows I yell freedom. Screaming it with all of my might, all night. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm free all night.
So, where are you in the life? That's what Marisol always asks. Not just where you are, like Ring Hall, but where you are in the struggle, in the journey, in the climb. Because she knows that life's timeline is not linear. It twists, it traps you. And sometimes, if you fight hard enough, it releases you. This is my partner, Marisol. She knows this because she's lived it. Incarcerated in what should have been the most productive years of her life, she lost time that she could never get back. But she did not stay lost. She came back. Faster, stronger, determined. She had to run. Like Dante, Marisol climbs up the mountain of purgatory, using words as her hooks. You are a piece of clothing that time scissors trim day by day, unless you keep patching the cloth, says Dante, echoing Marisol's words. It's kind of like time slicing away. It's kind of like I have to patch it up, because if not, there's not much left. I mean, you cut an article of clothing, it's never the same. The cloth is a different iteration of yourself, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Hell is untinted by time. Senza tempo tinta. So, she accelerates her climb. Now she's a law student and professor. Soon, she'll be a doctor of law. Not just a survivor, but an advocate. She fights for justice, for policy that makes sense, for a system that doesn't destroy the very people that it claims to rehabilitate. And she does it with words, because words are her weapon, her tool, her power. And she is a writer, and not just any writer, but one who knows how to make the story land exactly where it needs to. She knows how to tell a story that makes you see what you refused to look at before. She spins it, she sharpens it, she makes it cut deep. And tonight, Marisol will read you a piece that she wrote after reading Dante while still in prison. She paints a picture of the moment when Judge Minos condemns you to your circle of hell.
My involvement with Dante's Inferno began when I was waiting for my final sentencing at York Correctional. The judge's penetrating glare mesmerized me the way a snake's slow sway would keep its prey enthralled, just before its fangs pierced the carotid. Like the judge in Dante's Inferno, the persistent questions and demands for admissions of guilt and implications of others in my nefarious doings swallowed me while I entered the criminal justice system. The rhythmic ticking of the clock in the background kept time with the endless demands and ceaseless questions echoed. The judge's condemnation felt identical to the cloyingly persistent questions from correctional officers, being sly while slithering amongst those they sought to entrap as co-conspirators, unintentional co-conspirators, all in pursuit of the real story. To Minos, down he bore me, and the judge twined 8 times round his callous back the tale, which biting with excess of rage he spake. This is a guilty soul, and that in the fire must vanish. Hence perdition doomed I rove, a prey to rankling sorrow in this garb. When he had thus fulfilled his words, the flame in dolor parted, beating to and fro. Judges, lawyers, and the correctional blue seek to slither and sly a confession no matter the cost. Honeyed promise and the perpetual lie dance within the halls of justice. Tell me the truth, what's the real story? Have there been others? Tell the truth and we will let you go. Honeyed promise and perpetual lie dance from behind the podiums and the cell bars. Tell me the truth, what's the real story? Have there been others? Advised to work with correctional blue, slither and sly. Tell me the truth, what's the real story? Have there been others? Twisting and turning, wheels of justice entangled. Slither and sly, what's the truth? Have there been others? What's the real story? Slither and sly, honeyed promise and the perpetual lie. What's the real story? My carceral experience was my inferno. My partner Giovanna now gives voice and articulates my words of my accelerated return home. The ticking of time still echoes, but only in my head, as I rush to gather the lost pieces.
Marisol and I have spoken many times over the last semester about her continued experience. Here's her words. For those of us inside, time slows down like suspension. I was incarcerated at the height of my life, years that should have been the most productive, 30s, 40s, years when you work, when you build, when you raise a family. I didn't have that, but I made up for it. When I graduated from grad school, my mentor from CPE, he gave me an artistic timepiece. You know, I laugh, I make jokes about it, because it's like, I asked him, like, are you trying to throw time in my face? And I laugh because I swear it doesn't work. But when I'm home and it's awfully quiet, I hear that tick, 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 tick. And the arms, they don't look like they're moving because they're so very slow, but the internal mechanism still tick, 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 tick. And it feels like there's never enough time when you hear that time tick away. So I accelerated. Master's degree, law degree. I did it because I had to, because I know what it is to be in a cage. I know what it does to the mind, and I know what it does to the soul. I did not die, yet I lost life's breath. That's what prison is, a death of a different type. And I would rather you put a needle in my arm than lock me up forever with no hope. No hope, because what kind of life is that? And some say, well, at least you're still alive. But what is alive when you're caged like an animal? There is no hope of death when blind life is so abject. You become envious of every other fate. I used to be on the other side of the law. Black and white, right and wrong. But life? Life is shades of gray. Some of my closest friends went to prison for murder. Are they good people? Bad people? Who decides? Law, precedent, policy? You and I both know that the law doesn't work in black and white, and it never has. And here's the part that resolves nothing. You can't undo the crime. You can't undo the pain. Still, we play by the rules of a broken game. Justice divine has weighed, the sin must be that horrible. No, that's not justice. That is something else. Before me, nothing was created except eternal things, and I endure eternally. And that's why I create. That's why I write. That's why I learn, because art, it forces us to see, to think, to question, to change. Writing was my escape, my rebellion, and my resistance to that eternity. Like Dante's souls racing in purgatory, I feel them echoing inside of me. They ran and ran, and two in front of them who wept were crying, "Quick, quick, lest time be lost to insufficient love, where urge for good is keen, grace finds new green." They ran not just to run, but to change. So now it's harder. It's different. My brain is wired weird, I know that. But let me tell you something. I survived things that would break most people. I've come back time and time again. And do you want to know why? Because I had no choice, no safety net, no one to catch me when I wobble, and I wobble. But even if I have to crawl on my hands and knees, I stand. And when I stand, watch out. Because here is the thing. I am my own Virgil. I don't need your approval. I don't need your permission. I have walked through the fire and crawled out of the depths. And I will keep going. I have to make up time, I have to run and run. Because I am not done.
Israel de Egipto, domus Jacob de populo barbaro, nexitu Israel.
Maricel spoke about time. Dante spoke about time. And now, I'd also like to speak about time with a quote inspired by Dante, where Virgil asks, when seeking advice about how to get to the top of Mount Purgatory, Tell us where the slope inclines and can be climbed. For he who best discerns the worth of time is most distressed whenever time is lost. Given my experience, 22 years of confinement, and the transformation that I had to go through, I don't just see this line as some poetic observation period piece, nah. I feel it. The slope is life itself, and the climb, a representation of growth, healing, redemption, struggle towards justice and wholeness. And for someone like me, who's lived in the shadows of lost time, the value of each moment isn't theoretical, it's sacred. And for that reason alone, I see time the way she deserves to be seen. If only you would see her too. Look at her over there standing. Nah, she ain't no clock. She's a voice that won't tell you sweet nothings. She's honest, against and for us. With soft words to patch wounds, she just waits, asking, where does your spirit limp? Nah, she don't lower heels. She makes the heart lean forward, makes the soul ache for that slope, even when the climb hurts more than the fall. Even when the climb hurts more than the fall, she just waits, asking, where does your spirit limp? She don't lower heels. She makes the heart lean forward, makes the soul ache for that slope, even when the climb hurts more than the fall. Nah, she ain't cruel, just honest. So be that man who can be the revolution, carry the scars and dreams that still climbed. Be the echo that listens, not just speaks. Let her carry your rage for you. Let her whisper forgiveness to the boy you were. Let he who was chained become the one who leads. Let time, who once left you starving, be your kin now. The one who best teaches you to breathe slow, live whole, and don't rush. She discerns every doubt and every prayer. She counts tears and measures the weight of unspoken moments. Nah, she ain't cruel, just honest. She knows the worth of brokenness turned beautiful. So treat her like sacredness of soil and plant peace. Dig deep and remember this. Time don't rewind. She moves with or without you. She is the highest currency. Lose her, and you will feel that ache. The most unrelenting ache that lives between should've and now. That distressed your marrow, that makes silent scream. So love her, especially whenever she pauses. Especially whenever she runs. Especially whenever your breath and time align like sunrise. Because the price of knowing is that nothing is promised. But every second once lost can birth a new name. If only you would see her too. Thank you.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Let me tell you about my partner, Cortina. Cortina is the daughter of an ex-incarcerated individual. She expresses in her memoir the effects of the in and out presence of her father due to incarceration, shattering the stability she longed for as a child. In her words, she states,
Lamenting. The lamenting of my baby sister rang loudly as we in my neighborhood watched my father being taken away in handcuffs. I do not remember exactly what he had done, but I do know this was not his first run-in with the police, and that scene will forever be etched in my mind.
These memories stayed with her until adulthood. She has been part of an anthology in which she wrote her story to shed light on individuals with incarcerated parents. Throughout the years, Cortina could keep light through singing and writing. Through such, she could express all the painful unspoken words of her youth.
I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
For as long as she could recall, her father has contributed to the music in her life. He has always sung, ever since she could remember. He was part of mostly Christian groups. He blasted music when she was a little girl. Well, mostly gospel, but he sang. So it was no surprise that when her father was being taken away at different times, she gravitated towards music.
For I know where I come from, and I know where I'm going.
As an adult, she prides herself on the improvement she has made in the relationship with her father. She had always hoped to receive a stable relationship with him, just like Virgil was there to guide Dante in a critical period of his life, Inferno and Purgatory.
I'll have a great future as long as I'm in my Father's will.
We can compare Cortina's journey to the word that Virgil spoke to Dante at the top of Purgatory Mountain. See, Virgil was like a father to Dante. These fortifying words were the last he spoke to him before he left. You're past the steep and you're past the narrow path. Await no further words or sign from me. Your will is free, erect, and whole. I crown and mighty you over yourself. Similar fortifying words would have lessened the hardship that Cortina feels as an adult. Now we can find Cortina using her powerful singing voice to actively challenge and continue writing her story.
I don't want no trouble at the river. I don't want no trouble at the river. I don't want no trouble when it's time for me to cross to the other side.
These are excerpts from conversation I had with Cortina. Let me present them to you in her words. As a little girl, safety comes to mind, because at any time, the rug can be pulled out from under you, or you could be disappointed. So I have a habit of withdrawing myself. That's protection mode. That is putting on a armor to harden myself, to lessen the blow of disappointment, to not even have high expectation, to grow up, to not only have codependency, but you feel like you need to tiptoe around and try to keep the harmony and the stability, to keep the peace, but at the cost of what? I get it in my heart, I get it in my spirit. We were moving a lot. I understand that they're not perfect. They did the best they could with what they have. They are human as well. They have never been that age either, but I have wanted stability. I get it in my heart, I get it in my spirit. Sometimes I feel like I repress. I still don't have stability. Sometimes when you're so close to it, you can't see it. And I think you're put in certain situations where you feel a sense of guilt. And unfortunately, that sense of guilt can feel like a responsibility and what can be resentment. I don't want to be misunderstood. There's a lot that goes into this. I wanted expression, to have an outlet for myself. If you're the child of an incarcerated father or parent, have an outlet for yourself, whether it's writing, whether it's music, whether it's the art. That's my advice. I use the art, I use singing as my way to express. So growing up, my brother and sister, we would make music. But how I got into songwriting is I started turning my poetry into songs. My brother would play the instruments, and my sister and I would sing. When I feel like I couldn't pray, I would sing. If I want to hear a message, or if I gravitated towards a song, that's because the song had the message that I wanted to hear. I get it in my heart, I get it in my spirit. I use the art, I use singing as my way to express. When I sing, I think people can hear the emotion behind the words. And some of them may even know a little bit of my story. And I've gotten older, and I'm in the ministry, and I've learned how to navigate through a lot of stuff. My father has always had a desire to be a good example, but we're all humans who are falling short. Like the Bible says, no one is perfect. I'm a Christian. I feel like there's forgiveness. I feel like there is grace, as Dante said. But my desire and will were moved already, like a will revolving uniformly around the love that moved the sun and the other stars.
I'm not happy that my father went to jail, but I do wonder about the version of Tina that would be here had he not. I'm grateful for my life. Sorry, y'all, my brother's birthday's tomorrow. I'm grateful for my life. Working every day to be someone. Someone that I could be proud of, my children and my family could be proud of, and most of all, God could be proud of.
Sometimes I feel mistreated, and sometimes I feel defeated, and sometimes I feel like I should just give up. Yeah, but when I think about old Jordan, one day I got to cross that old chilly Jordan, and no, I don't want no trouble when it's time for me to cross to the other side.
Regina
Thank you, Tina.
Jelly.
Thank you. Incredible voice.
Hallelujah.
Speaking of incredible voices, you guys remember when I was telling y'all earlier how the number of women that were commuted between 1984 and 2014 were 2 women, and then that number rose by 400% after Miss Naomi's epic performance at TEDx. Her genius, her beautiful voice literally changed history. But that wasn't the only history that was made that day. For one, among that 400% was Miss Naomi Blount Wilson herself, released after serving 38 years in prison. But also, I had a band at the time. We were named BL Sherelle. And a gentleman by the name of Fury Young saw my performance. And he reached out to me about a concept album that he was working on about mass incarceration. And the album Hypnosis was about a juvenile that went through all of the system's, processes for decades until they were an adult. And Fury was a Jewish man from New York City who had never been incarcerated, and he was telling the story of this kid. And there were songs for every step of the process. It was juvenile placement, parole violations, goodbyes to lifers, recidivism. And while the idea, it inspired me so much, it also completely infuriated me. And the reason why it infuriated me is because this man didn't know me from anywhere. He wasn't even writing to me per se, but he was writing about my whole life story. Somebody that I never, ever met was telling my life story for me, word for word. And at that moment, I decided that I would never, ever again let anyone have that kind of power over my narrative. I would never be such a statistic that strangers can predict my next step before I even stand up. Now is your will upright and sound and free, and not to heed it will be to err. So I wrote my first 2 professional placements for that album, for that gentleman. And from that album, Freer Records was born. And Freer Records is the first nonprofit record label in America for prison-impacted musicians. And I happen to be an artist, songwriter, producer, and I serve as co-executive director of this nonprofit. And through my work, I reunited with Miss Naomi, a reunion I once thought was impossible when I left the gates. Remember, I'm never going to see her again if everything worked out as planned. And on my way out, she said, and I better not see you again. And she was now a commutation specialist. She was working for the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania. She was helping other lifers get free, navigating them through the clemency process. I mean, we were really thriving. We was giving back. We was pouring into society in ways that I would have never, ever imagined, and doing it together. And we reunited through our first love, which was music. We did gigs all across the country. We traveled the world together. And I remember a lyric from her song. She had a song called Incarcerated, and her lyric was, I could have been in Paris somewhere. I'll never know, because I chose to be a fool. And one night, we were doing a gig with Professor in Italy, and we were in this old prison that had carvings of Dante quotes on the wall. And when you enter, it said, abandon all hope, carved in the walls, drawings that are hundreds and hundreds of years old. And one night when we were out in Italy, that lyric came to my mind, and I said, Miss Naomi, I said, remember, I could have been in Paris somewhere. And we started singing it under the stars, crying in real life, happy tears for what music has done for us. It has truly, truly freed us. I crown and mitre you over yourself, over yourself. And now, ladies and gentlemen, y'all are going to hear Miss Naomi crown herself in her own voice. Thank y'all.
Regina Celli, vedere,
And you know, I can just picture Virgil just standing up there on the top of Purgatory Mountain, just holding that crown in his hand, waiting for Dante to get his just reward, wearing a crown. Something that I pray that one day I will get as well, wearing a crown. I shall wear a crown. I shall wear a crown. When my life is over, thank you, Jesus, I'll wear a crown. I'm going to put on my robe and tell the
you guys she had such a beautiful voice. I'm not going to cry. I'm going to try and make it so that Tina can come back so that we can talk to you guys. But right now, I'm just trying to make it. In the book of Joshua, the people of Israel were told to keep their eyes on the Ark of the Covenant when crossing the Jordan River, God's leading hand. The people you see here today were encouraged to keep their focus on the art, new spiritual journeys that required some sort of faith in something that they possibly couldn't even see. And in order to cross their Jordan, and I'm not talking about no river, I'm talking about that place or that thing, the prison or the prison sentence. I'm talking about the thing that they thought may have held them up from receiving what God had for them. Sometimes we need to remember that music is like the rivers of Lethe and Uno that help us to forget troubles and remember joy. So forget about the hard mattresses, forget about the social injustice, forget about the trauma, remembering home-cooked meals, a loving hug, and the smell of fresh flowers. From the holy waters I came out, refreshed, renewed, cleansed, like a tree in the springtime, excited and ready to reach for the stars. Naomi reached for the stars and she grabbed a new way of life. She brought a melody into everybody's life. She danced to her own beat, walking with grace. And today we not only remember her, we say thank you to Miss Naomi. We say thank you to Miss Naomi.
I had the pleasure of meeting Miss Naomi actually last spring. And I only knew her for a short time, but she had a deep impact on my life. She not only, actually we had an instant connection because she was from North Philadelphia, and that's where my mother and grandmother were born before they moved here to Middletown. And so we had an instant connection there. And also when you hear her voice, I was just like, oh my God. As soon as I heard the first note, I was like, yes, I will be her partner. And I actually shared her life story when I first participated with Professor Jenkins. But this song, No Trouble at the River, is near and dear to me because I used to sing it in my previous church, and it's just a song of me remembering to keep on the narrow path. And it's also special to me because my grandmother heard it before she passed away, and someone had given her a CD from church that day, and they said that she cried when she heard it. And in hindsight, I don't know if she cried when she heard it because she had never heard me sing like that because I was a shy little thing. Matter of fact, the first time I was supposed to sing in church as an adult, I was sick. I didn't go. So she probably had never heard me sing like that. And I don't know if she cried because she was about to cross her river because she battled breast cancer. And so this song is near and dear to me, as I said, as I strive to reach paradise.
No trouble at the river. I don't want no trouble at the river.
You don't want no what?
I don't want no trouble
When it's time for me to cross to the other side. What you got, Miles?
Hey, I don't want no trouble at the river. I don't want no trouble at the river. I don't want no trouble at the river.
Time for me to cross to the other side. Yeah, I don't want no trouble at the river. No, I don't want no trouble at the river. I don't want no trouble when it's time for me to cross.
So anyone who can stay is welcome. The performers would love to hear your comments, anything you have to say, any questions that you have to ask, especially those of you who know some of the people up here on the stage, some of you who've been in the class before. It'd be great to hear from you. But we're going to kick off the discussion with our distinguished guest from New York University, the president of the Dante Society of America, Professor Allison Cornish.
So speaking of honey promises, that was a hard act to follow, and I feel like I've been brought here under false premises. My goodness. What can I do? What can I say to y'all? I'm just really, really moved. And, you know, I've been teaching Dante to privileged undergraduates, okay, for a long time, okay? And they have a hard time with Dante because he's old and he's deceased. He's European. And, you know, that's one question I was going to ask you all. Like, didn't you ever have that moment? Like, who is Dante to me? Who am I? You know, who is Hecuba to me, I think is a phrase out of Shakespeare. So, yeah, I don't know how the magic happens. You know, you had a letter to Dante, you're thanking him. Definitely your teacher. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah. Give me a hand.
Yeah.
Dr. Jenkins, let's go.
And a lot of you talked about Virgil, and really what it's about is that these things have to be handed by real people, right? One after the other. It's not like this poem lies, you know, underground and somebody dug it up. It's like this has been, we're handing it, right? We're handing over the fire, one person to another person. We heard that about the music from Miss Naomi, handing to the other. So anyway, I'm very moved, and I'm not sure what I should say, but the wood of the suicides, you know, the wood of the suicides that one of you mentioned, and that's a very hard canto to teach because we should have compassion for those who didn't think they could go on, right? And Virgil calls Pierre de la Vigne incarcerated soul. That's what he calls him, incarcerated soul. He's incarcerated in that tree. But part of the great sadness of Pierre is that he saw himself as incarcerated in his body and didn't see, as I think all of you have been saying, that the freedom is inside, even when they've put you in prison. And I think of the first person we really talked to in Paradise is a woman who wanted to be inside the walls of the monastery, into that safe place, right? And she had a brother who was not very nice, and he had a lot of thug friends and henchmen. And she thought she had found her paradise inside the walls of the convent. And then she says, men more accustomed to evil than good came, and they dragged me away. And what we learn with Picarda is that we always have a choice. You know, there's always a choice, even when you're violently coerced into things, that there's always a freedom inside. And anyway, I'm just really overwhelmed with the beauty of your stories, of your collaboration, of the person-to-person contact and the handing on. I teach a course called Texts and Ideas, which is in the core curriculum. I don't know if you have that Wesleyan, but and a lot of people don't want to be there. And there was an article in the Atlantic, I think it was just last October, saying that students in the elite universities no longer read books. Like, they can't. And you guys are reading a book. Like, what's wrong with them? Well, maybe they don't have the motivation, and they don't realize what a book can do, you know? So, but I think I'm going to adopt this thing of, like, where did you get that, right? Yeah, you got it from a person, but it's also because this text, the beautiful thing about literature, and I'm a literature professor, okay, is the beautiful thing about literature, things written in books, including the Bible, which is also a text, right, is that it survives. It survives the parchment that it's written on, or the papyrus or whatever. It survives as it gets translated from one language to another. It survives as it crosses oceans and everything. And we can still find the meaning in it, in our own context, in our own time. And that's life. It's how life is passed on. And anyway, so I don't know, you just inspired me to preach. But,
You got Dante in you.
but so yeah, I guess if I'm going to kick off questions, because I'm sure you all have questions too, not just me. But my question would be, did any of you have that kind of like hostility to this book and to this, in the beginning?
Use the microphone.
Yeah, when I didn't expound on when Preach kicked my bed when I was locked up. There's just certain things you don't do when you're in prison, especially when a man is asleep. Especially men like me who dream. So my dreams was my escape from the prison. And you got this dude coming in, I'm already battling the fact that I'm about to die in 6 months, coming in, kicking my door, talking about Dante. I'm like, if you don't get the hell up out my room, man, I don't care about no Dante. But I appreciate he was a real man, and he said, I don't care what danger I'm in, I'm gonna kick his bed at 5 in the morning, and we going to put him on the list, and then that's how I met Dr. Jenkins. So, yeah. I didn't like Dante at first because I didn't know him, but then after I got to know him, Dante was in me. Our story's the same. Same thing as he said when Dante was falsely in prison. But we can relate.
Yeah, so I still have an issue with Dante. But it's not a binary thing. It's both and, right, for me. Because here's a man who was brave enough to tell his story, right? Minus all of his privileges, he still had a story. And after serving 22 years of incarceration, I want somebody to hear my story as well. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you could take issue with whatever else that I did, but just don't forget that, because that's also part of me. And so, you know, along with my antagonistic position towards him, it was also an embracing position towards him. I mean, I value him, my story, your story, because it's all part of the human experience, right? And so, like, yeah, I have my issues with him, but I have my appreciation for him as well. And I would hope somebody will offer me that same type of exchange.
So I'm gonna answer this actually multi-pronged. So first, to your question about why Dante, how we can identify. So I'm an academic, right? I'm a law student, books, whether it's the Bible, law textbooks, policy books, any book. That's paper, always. But to really answer the deeper question about the identification with Dante is the fact that these are systems that have been long in place, right? Whether it was during the time of Dante, these are still broken systems. And that's what we identify with, is the broken system, whether it's race, poverty, incarceration, all of it. Didn't stop from then, still present today. So I think it's a story for the ages that we all know, whether it's money, socioeconomic, skin. That's how we identify with Dante. It's the unifier. Incarceration is the great unifier. You know what they say, right? If it's not jail, wait, no, it's not Yale if it's not jail, or the other way around. But you guys get what I'm saying.
So do any of you have any comments. The performers love to hear what you thought of what they were doing, and questions as well.
Well, thank you for coming here and being so open and sharing your experience. You know, that's not easy for people to do. So definitely appreciate that. My question is, you know, people like being incarcerated may have a unique perspective on, you know, just like society in general. Like there's a lot of unhealthy stuff out here. You know, there's a lot of people who are struggling. So I'm just wondering, any things that you may have learned, you know, like through your experiences that you think might be really helpful. And, you know, and I'm thinking of like non-religious, because not everyone, you know, has that part within them. Thank you.
Can you the gist of your question? Can you repeat it for me?
Yeah, like what do you think are like small things that could really help people, you know, like overcome challenges? You know, like a lot of us have things that
Challenges in general, not.
yeah, like a lot of people have like personal demons or bad habits or bad things that have happened to them, and that kind of just puts them on a path. You know, like, so what are things that can be useful and that could be helpful to everybody? And, you know, and it's more from like, not when people hit rock bottom, you know, because a lot of people are like, oh, you just got to learn how to ask. I'm just saying like how to be able to like put support you know, systems out there so people can thrive.
For one, you do have to ask for help. I think pride gets in a lot of people's way, and they drown silently. But if you do ask for help and you seek resources, they're there. You just have to really try to fight for yourself and find them. I also think, like Tina said, like an outlet. You know, when I didn't have nothing, I had my pen and my paper. That's what I had to like maintain my sanity. And I don't know where I would be if I didn't have the gift of being a writer. I damn sure wouldn't be in front of y'all today. You know what I mean? So that got me through a lot. So I think having an outlet is very important. I think having a support system is very important. I think having community is very important. And you can find your tribe, but you have to literally find it. And I know like sometimes people don't want to hear that. People want to feel like there's no resources out here, there's no help, but that's just not true, you know? Sometimes it takes effort. If you want to make the change, if you want to do this thing, you just got to fucking do it. It ain't really you know what I mean? So I think a lot of it is like finding where you belong, finding the sense of belonging with a community that can support you, and, you know, digging into resources and just going for it. It's no easy like thing, or it's no pity party that we can give you like, oh, yeah, it's hard. It is hard, but everybody life hard. Everybody go through stuff. Everybody got challenges. It's just, are you prepared to try and overcome yours or not?
So I'm probably gonna take that a little differently. So mental health and mental hygiene, right? You heard my story earlier that Giovanna mentioned, right? My brain is wired a little different. It's a little weird. Neurodivergency, right? This is whether or not I had it prior to incarceration or not. Learning style is a little different. Mental health is a little different, right? It's having that ability to be vulnerable. Sometimes it's being vulnerable at the risk of, right? Biel said about, you know, finding tribe. Here's the thing. Sometimes you may or may not find it right away. You may not find it at all. But it's also not being afraid of asking for help. So as a professor, I have students who, you know, this is the generation of COVID kids, right? Who lack the ability to connect sometimes. They go through social anxiety. We as adults go through social anxiety. But we always think that we have to be something that we don't, either that we're afraid of being judged, being told we're not good enough, we're not this, we're not that. Here's this, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, right, it's you. The only person you gotta deal with is you and whoever the higher power is, if you do believe in God or not, but it's you. The only person you have to answer is you. But you have to have that honesty of self and that transparency to say, as BL said, you have to take accountability for your own actions. If your shortcomings, then, that's what it is. But the reality is being honest with yourself, but also not being afraid of asking for help. Because guess what? There is not a damn person in this room that has all the answers. Doctor this, lawyer that, doesn't mean a damn thing. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all have faults, and we all suffer from the same demons, whether they are alcohol, drugs, food, insecurity, whatever. It hits us all. Nobody is here without whatnot. Is asking for help and saying, I need that. That's it.
Thank you, Maricel. I see some former students who've taken this class before. You have any comments or questions from the...
Yeah. What you think about the remix?
I was very, sorry. I was happy to see the song at the end come back, No Trouble at the River. I remember singing that with Miss Naomi when she was able to be here with us. And it was really cool to hear more aspects of some of the same people's stories that I have heard some parts of, to learn some more about you guys, and to hear from the new folks as well. That was really awesome and vulnerable performance, so thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. It's good to see you again. You too. Oh, and Mom, thanks for coming again, too.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you so much. This is, I think, my third year of being able to come to an iteration of this performance, and I'm one of Professor Jenkins' colleagues in the theater department, and I think a lot about the relationship between theater and community, and it's been amazing to hear this conversation about community. And my question is, because I'm starting to get a sense after being here for 3 years, like what this community is and how people remain in it and how people enter into it and leave it. But I'm really curious about when the class isn't happening, whether and how you feel this community around you. And for those of you who have taken Dante in so deeply, are you starting your own conversation groups with Dante that Professor Jenkins isn't a part of? Does that do you feel my question in there?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually writing an album. My next album is like around the whole Divine Comedy, but it's my life. It's similar to what I do on the stage. I'm going to give Professor a co-production credit, though. I'm not just going to leave him out. I just act like I just never knew him, you know, because I wouldn't be able to make it if I didn't do his class and learn so much. But yeah, it's going to take you through like my Inferno, my Purgatory, and you know, I think I might stop there because I don't want God to think like my work is done and say, "Oh, you made it to paradise already, bitch," and take me out of here. You know what I mean? I still got some work to do. But yeah, my album is around the theme of Divine Comedy, and also the community thing. When Miss Naomi died, Tina actually came to the funeral, like all the way from Connecticut, came all the way down to Philly. You know what I mean? So I think that's a powerful, you know, gesture, or not even a gesture, but that should explain to you how tight, you know, the community is.
Yeah, and another community element is that in the last week of Miss Naomi's life, I was able to see her in Philadelphia, and I set up a Zoom with her and Miles, who was one of her favorite students, and he was able to sing to her. At that point, she could barely talk, but she lit up. She was so happy when she heard Miles' voice singing, and the last words I heard her say were, "I love you, Miles." Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so being a part of this class, which has really just been a life-changing experience, I don't know if I consider it a class anymore. Ariana was with me in our class in 2022, which now we became a family. I mean, we would even have lunches at the end of every 3-hour course and just kind of our dinner and get to know one another more deeply. And so at that time, Ariana and I were both first-year Masters of Divinity students at Yale. I went to Yale Divinity School responding to a call for ministerial leadership, wanting to serve in ministry. And what I didn't know, and this is also when your question about help, is that when I was praying to God and asking for help about how I would learn about ministry, I found it here amongst these individuals. I learned what it really means to pick up and relate to a text and connect your story to that text in such a way that it inspires someone else from these individuals. And so oftentimes when we ask for help, we can be discriminatory about where that help may come from. But I learned it from people who were formerly incarcerated, people who battle things just like I battle things. And so it was ultimately a blessing for me just to work alongside each and every one of these individuals now for the third time. And the last thing I would say is, one thing it also taught me is to not miss divinity that can be hiding in plain sight. Because like culture, right here, right next to me, died 9 times, heart stopped 9 separate times. And yet he's standing next to me, sitting next to me, breathing, acting, and not even acting, but telling a story and remembering things, and is in his right mind. And so it's so easy to negate that. But that's a divine miracle. And each and every person here is literally a walking, breathing miracle. And so they inspire me. Each of you inspire me deeply. Just to continue forward, and I thank you for allowing me to even be a part of this, and thank you, Professor Jenkins, as well.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you all. Real quick, there also have been 2 couples that got married out of the class who met each other in our class, and they got married, and I know some students went to their weddings. Yeah.
Professor, real quick, I just want to, I see you. I just want to thank the students, real quick. Somebody has a question back there. But I want to thank y'all for putting y'all energy, putting y'all time. You know, Professor can be demanding, you know what I mean? And all my OGs know, you know what I mean? He ain't no joke. But I just want to thank y'all for really putting your heart into the pieces. And, you know, it's a lot of sacrifice. And you got to really open up your heart and open up your mind to be able to take in, you know, you're taking in a lot of dark stuff to come up with that piece. And it could be draining of your energy. You know, I understand the amount of effort that goes into it. So I just want y'all to know, thank y'all so much. And I really appreciate it. And y'all did a fantastic job.
And
real
applaud them, yes. And, I just want to ask Ms. Deborah to respond to that question about what conversations you've had outside of the class, because I found out last night for the first time that you and your daughter had a session over Inferno. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so my initial class at Yale, we were going through Inferno, and the first 10 cantos, it was like really, we cried, we laughed, we argued, we debated, we did all this over the first cantos, yeah. And a lot of secrets came out between her and I. And those first 10 cantos of Inferno, and we said, wow, we should have recorded that moment. But nonetheless, we didn't, but we remember it. You know, we remember it and we never forgot it. And I think that is what really locked me in. Because prior to that, I had the Alan Mandelbaum book, and I was struggling with, like, literature-wise. But then once I connected with the other one, then I would put the 2 side by side, and I was on a roll from there. It was like no stopping. Also, I was telling Professor about, so I take the little bit of Dante and I take it to the Word. I haven't always been a preacher, by the way, but I take it to the Word and I kind of link it in so that I can bring forth a sermon, because people seem to think the book of Revelation is like this gory 7-eyeball, 7 beasts, and I'm trying to let them know, no, we're because my favorite line from Dante is, hope has a certain expectation of future glory. And my hope, because everybody's so, I'm hoping that when I die, like, it's something there. I just don't want to be like, what? Is this it? Just 4 walls? We looking, is that culture over there? And we just, you know, I'm hoping that there's something on the other side. I'm hoping that I'll see my parents. I'm hoping that I'll see Miss Naomi. I'm hoping. So I have a certain expectation of future glory. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Deborah.
Real quickly, I just want to respond to the question of community. So I remember when I first, I'm relatively, I might be the newest of the group, about 4 weeks probably. And I was overwhelmed because I was thinking about my connection in real time to this piece. I read Dante's Inferno like 15, 16 years ago from my mentor who passed away in 2020 from COVID, right? Mr. Mustafa Austin. And he introduced me to the book, and it was around the time when I was freshly incarcerated. I'm 20 years old, 21 years old, and I'm trying to figure it out. And he told me, you know, you like Dante, like you stuck in this purgatory, but it doesn't have to be that, right? And that's crazy because after I left him, this is like 05, 06, I don't read Dante ever again. Then I find myself in this community, attached back to this art, this story. So when you talk about like community, how that happened is because I carry somebody like Mr. Mustafa, who vicariously carried Dante with him. All right. And so, I mean, this is how I find community, right? So now these people that I've met, like, we linked in. You know what I'm saying, forever, right?
I too was with in that inaugural class with Preach, and we, like he said, it was a time to get out of the cell, but little did we know it was going to get into us, and May 7th, our session was put on YouTube. We never got to do the session in the final session while we were incarcerated because of it was a cold that day in the library, and we never got to do it. But the session that was done at Yale and we were presented, I didn't get to see it until I was discharged 10 years later, or 8 years later at that time, and so freedom and humanity came together when I got to push the YouTube station and see the writing that we did, performed, our families in the audience, and it being discussed, and it kind of collided, and the community that was there, and now it's colliding back by seeing Preach, and in a different way, Shakur is a part of the community through our CPE, and Marisol through my CPE connection. But it's that community that brought us together. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were going to expect. We signed up. We went. We couldn't wait till the next week when they were coming. We were trying to figure out how they're going to be able to come 2 days a week. You know, it was all initial. And so tonight's performance brought back, and it was surreal to see Preacher's mother, who he talked about a lot while we were incarcerated, and to see it all come together. And it seems surreal that that in my imagination, imagining Dante's Inferno, when we were going through it, my brother became Virgil in my session, and since then I was able to add my mother and another brother to the Virgil role, and it's through the Dante's piece that I see some peace, and I can see the paradise of it all. So thank you for continuing it, Dr. Jenkins, and continuing to be a part of it.
Thank you, and I hope you continue to be a part of it in the future when we work together, because I remember the amazing piece, many amazing pieces, but one in particular that you wrote in McDougall Walker in our class about New York City as hell. And you took us on the guided tour of all the steamy parts of the city.
Professor,
thank you so
before
much.
you
Yes.
finish, can I say one thing? So I wanted to address your question because I think it wasn't.
Talk in the mic.
Oh, what's your name, brother? Henry. So I wanted to address your question because I felt like it was different aspects, but before we can, like, all of us had vices. And I'm gonna say me, I'm gonna say I. So I had a vice. I wasn't always innocent, right? So, you know, I was guilty all my life until now. If you really, really want help, if you really want to change and evolve, you have to internalize. Sometimes asking for help doesn't help. You can ask a person for help, and they can guide you in the right direction, but as a kid, the elders in my family would say, oh, you could bring the horse to the water, but you can't force him to drink. You know what I'm saying? So it starts with inside. And I believe that if you serve as a example, then you can help somebody else who's also in the same inferno, that yawning pit that I was talking about, that broad and yawning pit, the evil field. If you internalize it, because when we incarcerated, it's called the Department of Correction, but it's really not a Department of Correction. It's a Department of Corruption. See, they don't put us in there so that we can learn how to, you know, correct our ways and become productive citizens in society. They put us in there because they need beds to fill, because the state makes money off the beds. And if there's an empty bed, they got to pay for that bed, so they have to put somebody in that bed. So when we get in there, people like us who understand this, we internalize and say, look, you know what, this is what I want to do. I want to evolve. I want to do better. And with that, we change the dynamics of the system.
Thank you, Robert. I think that we're going to have to stop. We can continue the conversation informally, but some of the guests have to get a train in New Haven. So we're going to let them go, and thank you, everybody here, for doing an amazing job. Thank you all for coming. It's really, you made it special just by being here. Thank you.